Good morning. Jump on this call. It's time for Coffee with Scott Adams. Where's everybody been? I missed you. Jump on, grab your coffee. Happy Sunday. Lots of news to talk about. Oh yeah, it's coffee time. Good morning, everybody. You missed me? Well, you should. I probably won't be on here too long this morning. Got a lot to do today. Big work day. We'll talk about Trump and his taxes and stuff. Did any of you see the Slate hit piece on me? Where the headline called me a horny narcissist? It's the worst. It was the worst hit article of all time, because I kept thinking to myself, if you're going to be a narcissist, don't you want to be a horny one? Because well, the only thing worse than a horny narcissist, wouldn't that be like an impotent narcissist or something? It feels worse. I don't know. If you're going to be a narcissist, you might as well be a horny one. Yeah, it was a hit piece that just sort of didn't work. So, show us your knees. Made you sound like a millionaire playboy. I have to think that I haven't had enough bad behavior in my life, because the best they could come up with was a horny narcissist. Yeah. So, some of you probably saw in the news that one of the Clinton super PACs had organized its Clinton supporters to attack influential people who supported Trump. And I saw, I know Mike Cernovich, for example, he's got some hit pieces coming out, or at least one against him. And I think this might have been their attempt to get at me, because here's the thing: it's news when Donald Trump does something, and then people like me and other people, we write about it. Okay, that should be the end of the process, right? Someone important makes news, and then someone else writes about it, and then other people write about it, and they maybe disagree with each other, and maybe they reference each other when they write about it. But that should be the end of the process, right? But once you start writing an entire article that's nothing except about another writer, I don't know how more clearly you can signal that you're not trying to write about the news anymore, or you're not. All you've done is you're using your publication as some kind of a political hit piece. And by the way, I use the phrase bottom feeders when I talk about Gawker when it existed, and Huffington Post, and Salon, and Slate, and those types of things, because they don't write about the headlines. They write about the people who are writing about the headlines. So they're the bottom of the list. They can't even write about the news. They're just writing snarky things about the people who are writing about the news. This is as low as you can get on the writer scale. I'm glad you got your coffee. You all seem so curious about my neighbor, Christina, who happens to be, coincidentally, also my girlfriend, in case you were wondering. She's around here somewhere. All right, so let's talk about Donald Trump and his taxes. We're up to 1,000 viewers. So question number one, did Trump leak his own taxes? It's possible, but I'm going to say no. And we're all sort of primed to think. That's all anybody cares about is my girlfriend now. So I think it's probably unlikely that Trump did it himself. It seems more likely that someone else did it. But either way, it's not terribly important now. Now that it's out, it's out. All right, so, God, it's so itchy. But the interesting thing about the tax release, and the one it was, especially because it happened to be the one that had that, nearly $1 billion loss, that he can, for those who don't know how taxes work, if you have certain types of losses, you can carry them forward, meaning that you could have gains in coming years, but you still wouldn't have to pay taxes because your old losses would get to count against them for a number of years in the future. Now, the average person doesn't understand that, right? So they just think, they get confused after the first two sentences of tax talk. And once they're confused, they're like, I don't know what's going on, but those are big numbers, and somebody said it's bad, and it must be bad. Now, everybody who has a brain knows a little bit about taxes, knows that he just followed the laws, and there's nobody in the world who wants $1 billion loss. I mean, he just had a really bad period, lost a ton of money. And by the way, I have those same types of losses on my. I pay tons of taxes, but in the past I've had losses that carried forward. It's a completely normal thing. And somehow they're going to make this into doesn't pay his taxes, blah blah. But the reason these laws exist, and it will be beyond the understanding of the the understanding of the electorate, is that it encourages business. Nobody gets to pay taxes if they don't make money, and you don't make money if there aren't businesses in the world. So the tax law is friendly to business, and it's especially friendly in real estate. My own accountant was telling me the other day that the laws of the land are super friendly to real estate in just about every way, but that's intentional, right? The government has created these laws so that people will do good things with real estate. It's so important to the economy. So the great irony of this is that you're showing an entrepreneur who's taking pretty big risks, but he's doing everything you're supposed to be doing. He took a risk. He created a bunch of jobs. He had a big loss, but he found out a way to not die from the loss. He negotiated. He used the bankruptcy laws, or Chapter 11 or 7 or whatever chapter he was using, to reorganize, and then he came back. So he did everything right to recover from this bad period, followed the laws, did everything right. But the public is going to see that as doing everything wrong, which is predictable but funny. And Mark Cuban is King Botox. The Bernie comments. Well, have you noticed that the Clinton supporters, which is most of the media, have decided to sell the story that he's got a weird temperament and he can't stay on the message and blah blah blah. But of course, he's just acting like he's always acted, which is he riffs, he says bad things about his opponents. I mean, nothing's different, but somehow they're making it look like it's a terrible thing. So I'll tell you what probably won't be effective. I don't think the whole Clinton thinks that Bernie supporters live in their basement thing. That's a big nothing. I don't think Trump will win New York. That seems like a big stretch. No, I don't think the basement dweller thing will have any impact. See, the thing is that if you were a Bernie supporter and you heard that comment, and I think it was taken out of context anyway, so the original context wasn't as bad as it sounds. But I think if you're a Bernie supporter, you say, yeah, there must be plenty of Bernie supporters who live at home. I'm either one of them or I'm not. I just don't think anybody cares. It's just no big deal. You say Chelsea is Webb Hubble's child? I've heard that rumor. You would vote for Hillary? Is Cialdini to blame for the violence? Well, I think Clinton is. I don't think you can blame any advisors, alleged or otherwise. But yeah, very clearly, I think if you took Trump's own comments, just by themselves, they could have been, bad. But they're not real bad until Clinton's side gets a hold of them and then amplifies them. So if you said who caused the problem, of course it's Trump with the things he says that can be taken out of context and misconstrued, and this can just seem bigger than they are. But none of that really is activated until Clinton decides that they're going to make a big deal out of her opponent being a giant racist Hitler. So if you were going to put the size of the problem on it, I'd say that Clinton's side did more intentionally to cause the racial violence that you're seeing now in lots of different places as people steal Trump signs and from lawns and all kinds of things. But Trump makes the initial mistakes of making it easy for them to say that stuff. Bush daughter with Huma last night? I didn't see that. Why are Clinton supporters more violent? Well, in general, I've made this comment that Trump supporters tend to have a lot of firearms because they're pro-guns. But in general, Trump supporters use firearms for defense. It's a self-defense weapon. And the Clinton supporters use their firearms for offense a little bit more often. Obviously, these are gross generalizations. But if you were to look at the number of people in prisons, for example, you would find a lot more Democrats and Democrat-leaning liberals in prison than you would find Trump supporters, I'm pretty sure. So if you figure criminals have more guns for illegal purposes, as a general statement, the Clinton side are offensive people. Offensive meaning they're more likely to create violence against someone else. Again, just a gross generalization, because there are more people in prison who are likely to be liberal Democrats. And the people who love the Constitution and love their guns are more likely to have guns for defense against those very liberal Democrats. That's just the way the world is organized right now. Yes, still saying Trump in a landslide. That diatribe was offensively dumb. Do you get mad at generalities if you know they're true, but they don't, and they're stated as generalities? Because if you are, there's something wrong with your brain. Generalities are just generalities. By definition, they don't apply to every person. Can you explain the electoral map? No. Can anybody? Roger Stone says Wednesday. What's happening Wednesday? Should Trump repeat his support for medical marijuana? I would like him to, and I think it would likely help him. However, one of Trump's biggest advantages. Hey, do you guys want to go out to my man cave for a minute? And I'll give you a preview of something I'm working on. All right, we're taking you to the man cave. I wasn't planning on doing this. I was planning on drawing some comics, but I'm going to turn this off in a minute. I'm going to turn this off. Yes, I'm really going to turn this off. All right, let's go to the man cave with me. We're going to talk about Trump's risk versus Clinton's risk. All right? I'm going to take you into the man cave, and I'll show you what I'm going to show you. This is for the man cave. I'll show it to you from a distance. We've got the whiteboard over here, which is what I'm going to show you. I've got my tools and whatnot over here, storage. Where's my neighbor? She's not too far away. I might say hi to her a little bit later. All right, we got the TV compressor. Here's where I do a lot of my thinking when I'm drawing my ideas up on the board here. And little TV viewing area. This area, oops. All right. So let me show you this. I was trying to, if you want to see this board better without the comments getting all over it. All right, so I was making a list here of the types of risks, and here I use the word alleged, right? So these are the things that people say are the risks about each one. And I was trying to get a sense of which list was more compelling, right? So I'm going to walk you through these. And I wasn't planning on doing this, but this will be fun, all right? So at the top of the list, dementia. Both Clinton and Trump are a certain age, and at the moment, neither of them seem to have any dementia. But, you know, you've got the Reagan problem, and it's just that age, and, you know, there's probably some of it in their families, etc. So that's a risk, but it's probably, as far as we can tell, roughly equal. I don't see much more dementia coming from one and then the other. No way to predict, but it's a risk because they're both old. Then you've got Clinton, who's clearly a lower energy, at least right now. We don't know what's up with that. Is that some kind of a long-term health problem, which I'm guessing it is, but we don't know. So it's risk. That's why it's a risk, right? All right, we're calling these risks. We're not saying these are going to happen. We're saying it's alleged and a risk. All right, not saying anything's going to happen. All right, so we got low energy on her list, but we don't have that as a risk on Trump. And here's why it's a risk. The job of president, there's a lot of decisions, a lot of stuff you got to do. And if you only do some of it and not all of it, that seems kind of risky. All right. But on Trump's side, we've got this con man thing. I put them as rough equivalents on the list. They're both sort of number two, because it seemed to me that the risk was sort of similar. All right. The real risk of being low energy is probably not gigantic, because you've got other people in the government who can, you know, fill the gaps, and you've got a vice president in case things go really bad. But likewise, con man is something they say about Trump, but how likely is that going to be a big risk once you're president and everyone in the world is looking at you? All right, probably that's not a big risk. All right, I think low energy is probably a slightly bigger risk, but yeah, let's call them about equal. Then there's temperament. Plenty of stories about Clinton in private throwing things at her husband and yelling at people and not getting along with staff. But guess what? That's everybody who reaches that level. You know, that's Nixon, that's Ike, that's everybody. You just don't hear about it, right? At that level, big decisions, big pressure. They all have a temperament. They all go crazy behind closed doors. Trump, his temperament, he's just a little bit more transparent. So you see him a little bit more clearly because he doesn't do as much behind closed doors. But I would say that's roughly equal because we can't really measure those things, right? You got, you know, Clinton, who her temperament may be affected by medications, so that worries you. Trump less so, but Trump does things in public which worries you more. So I'd say on the risk level, let's call it a tie. Now you've got the Clinton risk of immigration, that maybe her policies would allow more terrorists to infiltrate with the good immigrants. Now that's not zero risk with Trump because nobody can vet perfectly, but he's going to be tougher at it. So let's say advantage Trump. So far we're roughly at a tie, right? Until you get to the terrorist thing. And it's hard to value that because one terrorist that gets through and, you know, the whole country falls apart. So I'd say that's a pretty big risk and advantage Trump so far, right? We're not done. That's just so far slight advantage Trump. Now, riots. If Trump gets elected, there will be race riots. Now, how big they are is a question. But you can expect that the day after the election and maybe for days after, there will be inner city turmoil and police cars will be overturned and shit like that. That's a pretty big risk. I would expect people to get hurt, people to die. So that's a risk you got to put on the Trump side. But here's the interesting thing. Clinton is largely the cause of those riots because all the things that people would riot about are the things she told you to riot about. In other words, are mostly made up. It's mostly an interpretation of something that Trump said, putting it out of context, taking something that happened just in a business context years ago, blah, blah, blah. So thanks to whoever is advising Clinton, let's say somebody like Robert Cialdini, if not himself, a cognitive scientist, is giving them really good advice on how to win the election, but it's also going to cause a riot if the other side wins. So weirdly, you have to say that's a risk against Trump being president, even though the cause of that risk, I'd say, is 80% Clinton's side and 20% what Trump has done to make it easy to say those things, right? So I'm going to put you back to, let's see, if you compare the risk of riots, which I think will be limited and people will get hurt, a few people go to jail, but probably nobody dies. And if they do, maybe a few. But compare that to terrorists, I think still Trump is a little less risky, even with riots in the street. I mean, think about that. You could have quite a few riots before too many people die. But it only takes one terrorist act to kill 3,000 people or more. Okay. Now let's talk about scandals. Far more likely that if a scandal erupts on the Clinton side, it will just make her less effective in office for a variety of reasons. And you know that there's just so many scandals to be uncovered, and you know that the Republicans will be, just tireless in going after every little thing from the past and the present. So the Clinton presidency will be scandal, 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 scandal. That's a pretty big risk in terms of effectiveness, right? Not necessarily in terms of people dying, unless it affects her policymaking, that she's spending all her time on scandals and nothing can get done. I don't put that on Trump's side just because he's sort of insulated from scandals because that's already baked in. Like, people are going to say, hey, that time he had an affair, that time he did cheated somebody in business, and everybody's going to say, yeah, all right, we heard that. Done, move on. So I think a little more risk on the Clinton side, but I would say that's not the big risk, right? Slight risk, a little bit more. So far, we've gone down to here, a little bit more risk on the Clinton side. So you got the terrorism risk, low energy risk, a little bit more. A little more riot risk on the Trump side, largely caused by the Clinton team. But still, you have to put that on Trump's side because it would only happen if he gets elected. Now let's keep going down the line. I made these rough equivalents only because that's where they ended up in the list. Influence selling versus inexperience. Right? So you know that if Clinton gets elected, they've got that big Clinton Foundation. And by the way, if you didn't see Charles Krautheimer's article on that, where he talked about how they set it up in Canada so that the big donors from overseas can add their money while being anonymous, and then it gets bundled up and becomes a Canadian donation into the fund. So basically it's money laundering, long story short. So the Clinton Foundation is intentionally set up, according to Krautheimer, and it sounded credible to me, but you can judge. It is literally a money laundering situation for power and influence. So you'd expect that more of that would happen if she were in office. And Trump's proposition is that he's not beholden to the money interests. He may have his own problems in terms of influence, but we haven't seen them yet. So I'd say this is a much bigger risk on the Clinton side. But to bring this back to what I'm talking about risk, I'm talking about the kind where you die, not the risk of being less effective. The risk of dying from influence selling is that the people influencing you want wars. They make money from wars, all right? So there's a possibility that this is the biggest risk on the whole thing. Because if the people who are buying that influence also sell military products, that is a big fucking risk. On the Trump side, he's less experienced. But let's talk about that. Trump was inexperienced in real estate before he became one of the biggest developers. He had never built golf courses until he became a golf course developer. He had never written a book until he wrote a #1 best-selling book. He had never gotten this far into politics. He's never been a politician, although he ran a few times just a little bit. but he's already dominating his field. So he won in the GOP side, and he's running at least a tie or so, or at least real close, to someone who has more influence than anybody ever had, or more influence, more experience than anyone's ever had for this job. Now, you could argue that Clinton's experience is the bad kind. That's what the critics say. It's the bad kind because she made mistakes. So it's exactly the kind of experience you would want to look as disqualifying as opposed to qualifying. But I think that's a judgment call, right? I'm not smart enough to know whether her experience is mostly the bad kind or mostly the good kind. You just can't tell, really. You don't have enough information. But what we do know is that Trump has continually succeeded in new fields, just one after another. Bang, 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 bang. Now, I'm sure he has some failures in there, but for a guy entering new fields that he doesn't have experience in, if you were going to pick one person who could succeed at something without experience in the whole world, just one person, you said, who is most likely to succeed in a field without the most relevant experience? Donald Trump, right? Because he's already done it a whole bunch of times. So, if somebody can do it again, it would be somebody like him. Likewise, I also argue that you don't need as much experience as people think, because we put governors in there, and governor is not like being president. We put senators in there, and senator is really not like being president. There's really nothing like being president. And you're surrounded by people who know stuff. Now, people say, if Trump gets in there, I'm going to go. People say that if Trump gets in there, people won't work with him because he's so disliked. Here's why they're wrong. Right now, people are not endorsing. People say that if Trump gets in there, people won't work with him because he's so disliked. Here's why they're wrong. Right now, people are not endorsing Trump because they don't want to be associated with his reputation. All right, and there's a good reason. I think I've mentioned before that I had my speaking requests went from several per week down to nearly zero when I started writing about Trump. I had exactly one speaking engagement on the books. One I had agreed to, they had offered, we'd negotiated, we came to an agreement, and that was for next summer. So for the whole coming year, I had exactly one speaking engagement because I talk about Trump so much. There's nothing else that's changed, really. And this morning, I opened my email to find that one speaking engagement just got canceled. And why did it get canceled? The reason given was, we've decided to go in a different direction. Now keep in mind, this is a group that's been trying to get me for months, but as soon as the organizer talked to whoever was higher up, they decided that they needed to go in another direction. Okay, now, so I've lost literally millions of dollars in lost revenue because of writing about Trump, literally millions. I'm not talking about 1 year, but whatever the ripple effect will be going forward. So if you're a politician, you don't really want to associate yourself with Trump. But here's the thing, and this is the point I'm getting to, and it's about Trump's experience and about how effective he would be in office if we're trying to look into the future. Once Trump becomes president, everything changes. Because first of all, you have to work with the president if you're in politics, because he's the damn president. You can't avoid him, right? But there's something more important that I haven't heard anybody talk about yet. When someone becomes president, and this was true with Obama as well, you're no longer dealing with an individual. You're not dealing with Barack Obama, the person. And if Trump is president, you're not going to be dealing with Donald Trump, the person. You're not going to be dealing with Donald Trump, the candidate. You will be dealing with the office of the President of the United States. All right? If you disrespect whoever's in that office, if you fail to deal with them, and if you're just a jerk to them, you're disrespecting the Constitution of the United States and the citizens of the United States, because that's our system. That's our deal. Our deal is that we fight until we get the president, and then we get on as much as possible. We try to get on the same side, right? So once he's in office, people aren't going to act the same way. because they're going to be dealing not with the individual Donald Trump, who they can still hate. They can hate him, as much as they always hated him, but they're going to deal with the office of the president. That's a different deal. And people who are in the government understand that, right? So you don't really have to worry that people aren't going to deal with him or anything. That's just not going to happen. Now let's get back to Clinton's side. So far, we're not done with the list, okay? So let's get down to whether Trump is literally Hitler, like an actual racist who plans to take power and then start running things according to racial standards instead of fairness or any other kind of standard. I think that's frankly ridiculous. Right? I don't think there are any unhypnotized people who think that Trump is literally Hitler, because there are just no signs of anything that's even remotely like that. He does have signs of being a man who grew up in New York and is now 70 years old, meaning that, of course, in his past there are racial things, which is true of every 70-year-old, and it's probably true of Clinton as well. But if you look at modern Trump, all of us are not what we were. We are what we do now. And I would say what he does now, in terms of his more recent actions, the people he hangs out with, the people who support him, the policies he has, the outreach he's doing, the things he did with making his country club inclusive. If you look at the modern Trump, the current version, and we've all evolved, we've all improved, it's about as far from literally Hitler as you can get. Indeed, what Trump is doing is trying to protect a country that's mostly not white. His whole deal is protecting people who aren't white. That's literally what he's offering to do, because the country is now has a majority of non-white people in it. I think that's true, or it will have soon. But he's actually running to protect that group. And every sign we have is that every policy, every statement, he's 100% consistent with protecting a country that is mostly not a bunch of white people like him. So that is as far as you could get from literally Hitler. And also remember that Hitler demonized his own people, right? People within his country, the Jews within Germany. So which of these two characters, Clinton or Trump, is abusive to their own citizens? Now, obviously, Trump goes after his critics, but they're professionals, right? Professional. Even the cons were essentially professional because they were entering the professional stage as political operatives. So, but in terms of regular citizens, Trump is pro-America all the time. That's about as different from Hitler as you can get. Clinton actually has said things about the deplorables and things about Bernie's people, living in the basement and stuff. But that's mild stuff and certainly not Hitlerish. So I don't think you could put that mantle on her either. But I'm just going to equate these in terms of risk. There's a lot of rumor, and again, remember, this is on the list of alleged risks. So everything here is alleged. Nothing here is claimed as fact. We hear that she drinks too much, and I'll tell you my opinion of the video in which she famously said, why am I not already ahead by 50 points? Remember that one? And I'll say it again because I like to add as many qualifiers because I know this will be taken into context. I'm not a medical professional. I have no reason, no evidence to suggest that the video I'm talking about, and I'll say it again because I like to add as many qualifiers because I know this will be taken into context. I'm not a medical professional. I have no reason, no evidence to suggest that the video I'm talking about, where she seemed to talk too loud and in a weird personality, that why am I not ahead by 50 points? You've all seen it, right? And the question I ask, I put it to you as a question, because remember, I talk about persuasion. I talk about how we interpret our environment. All right, so I'm only talking about how you interpret your environment. Have you ever seen anybody act that way, the way Clinton acted on that video, without being drunk? Now, if somebody was always that way, you'd say, oh, that's their personality. But if they're only that way sort of that one time, and they stayed that way throughout the entire several minutes that you watched the clip, do you have any explanation just ask yourself, do you have any explanation of that other than drunk? All right, to me it looks like she was drunk. Now, I'm not saying she is. Remember, these are all only, we're talking about allegations and perceptions and stuff. But as a voter, I watched it, and she looked drunk to me. So, and the fact that I think it might be true kind of adds to my risk profile. And that's a big one. Because if you had a couple of drinks and you get that, midnight call, are you going to be as effective as the guy who's never had a drink and never done a drug? Probably not. Okay. Then talk about general health. It does look like Clinton has more general health problems. If you've got a president who's ill, I think that causes different decisions. It makes things unpredictable. It might even embolden your enemy. Imagine your enemy saying, our president is so sick, this would be a good time to make our move because they can't make decisions as well. That is a real big risk because it emboldens the enemies, I would think. They both have risks of making economic mistakes. I don't know how you could, how you could put a risk on that. And then there's a question of how people feel about equality in the country, and that's hard to. I think that gets wrapped up in the riots and how we feel about the country and blah, blah. But I think if Trump's president for a while, all that goes away. So let me just summarize. On this list, similar risk of dementia, meaning we don't know, and neither of them have it now as far as we know. But they're at that age, so let's call that a tie. We've got low energy on the Clinton side. That could definitely make a difference in how effective the president is, and effectiveness is risk, right? We've got Trump being a con man. I call it being a persuader. Some people would call it being a good negotiator. Some would say he's a businessman with sharp elbows. You can put lots of words on it. But he's going to be watched pretty closely if he's president. And I don't think there's going to be much conning going on unless it's to our allies, and he's offering to do that. So I see low energy be a little bit bigger risk there. Temperament, I think you'd have to call that a tie. Clinton's angry behind closed doors, lots of reports of that. Trump says things in public. We get to watch it. Some of it bothers you, but I call that a tie. Bigger risk from Clinton in immigration, because the terrorists could slip through more easily, we imagine, because of her less restrictive vetting. We think there could be riots, I think, if Trump is elected, but they're not going to last forever, and usually, people get hurt, but not a lot of death. Clinton, however, is probably the cause of the riots. Certainly things that Trump has said and done would make people say, hey, what's going on here? Do we have to worry? So he said things that put him in this dangerous position. That's all on him, right? But Clinton's side has cleverly capitalized on those, and I would say she's the cause of any riots coming up, so you have to factor that in. More chance of scandals erupting on the Clinton side because Trump is already sort of scandal impenetrable. People assume he's done bad stuff and they wouldn't elect him if that bothered him. Influence selling, far more likely on the Clinton side, far more likely to be the cause of a major war. And then there's inexperience on Trump's side, but he's succeeded in a lot of things he's inexperienced on, and he'll have tons of advisors, and I don't see that as the biggest problem in the world. Governors become presidents all the time, and being a governor isn't a lot like being president. You've got Clinton, who allegedly, I say allegedly, is a big drinker. If you have to make an important decision after 5 p.m., who do you want? The guy who's never had a drink or the one who's had a drink? If you've ever been around anybody who drinks, this whole list, let me put this in perspective. There is nothing on this list that comes close to drinks too much as a risk. Think about it in your own life. People you know who drink too much. All right? That one's a big risk. General health, obviously, Clinton has bigger problems, we think. And those are the important ones on the list. Okay? So I was thinking about blogging that, but I've got to get a trip. I'll be heading off to So I was thinking about blogging that, but I've got to get a trip. I'll be heading off to, actually I was going to say that Clinton's risk is more of the same. So our current trajectory is that the amount of debt that the country has now, we can pay. All right. So if things stay the same, the amount of debt we have, which is enormous, we're capable of paying. That's the reason that people allow us to have debt, is they look at our prospects and say, yeah, they're going to pay that back. What we don't have is a way to stop it from growing. All right. So a Clinton administration that is more of the same is guaranteed catastrophe, because we're on a path to catastrophe, meaning that the debt right now is no big problem, and it could actually be bigger, and we'd still be able to pay it fine. But that's not true forever. It's not true for another 10 years, probably. We can't just keep growing it. So I would say that unless something big changes, we are on a path towards certain destruction, just mathematical guaranteed destruction. I didn't mention climate change. I think most people would put bigger risk for climate change on the Trump side, but I think that might be a little bit misleading, because I expect that Trump will still do the things that make sense for climate change. There's probably going to be a technological solution to that, thanks to the Adams law of slow-moving disasters, I call it. So there are enough people working on the climate change problem that I think technology is going to take care of that, and so it probably isn't going to matter who's president. Because I don't think anybody's policy is going to fix climate change. Even if you say to yourself, my God, that Trump doesn't believe in science or anything. First of all, that's not true. He does believe the measurements are accurate enough. He just thinks the projections of what's going to happen because of that are inaccurate. And you know who else thinks that? Anybody who's ever done a complicated projection. There's nobody who thinks the projections are accurate who's ever been around anything that's like math or economics or projections. I can't believe anybody actually thinks the projections are accurate, because nobody's ever projected anything accurately in that type of complicated field. I do think the Earth has warmed up, but I think the projections were that it would already be far worse than it is now. So nobody's doubting that there's a problem, but the solution is probably going to be technology. It's not going to be governments, because governments just don't have the tools to do enough about it, beyond what they're already doing to save energy and spur the right kind of industries and stuff like that. Bill Maher, what about him? As an economist, I don't believe any projections. Right, yeah, I studied economics as well. I'm an economic major, and you should, if you're worried about the climate change models being accurate, just talk to anybody who's ever dealt with complicated models. They're all made up. Well, they're not made up, but just look at the polls. Look at the presidential polls, and they all get to pick their own assumptions about who's going to vote, which totally determines the outcome of the poll. My friend who does surveys, I sent him that because he was arguing that the polls are accurate. And I sent him a workup of one of them that showed the Democrats were oversampled. And his answer was that, well, polling, and he's an expert at this, by the way. He's done it all his life. It's, well, polling is more of an art than a science. Just listen to that. Polling is more of an art than a science, because how you pick your assumptions will determine how the poll comes out. If it's more of an art than a science, you know what else it is? Total fucking bullshit. Complete bullshit. That's what it means when you say it's more of an art than a science. There's no better way to, there's no more accurate way to say that than it's complete bullshit. If you get to choose the ending before you gather the data, what the hell do you call that? Climate change, science is an art too. The projection part is an art, yes. All right. Sophistry. All right, so calling the electorate stupid. Maher is calling the electorate stupid. Well, the electorate is stupid, but so is everyone else. No one told me. What about hackers? Well, there's some risk of hackers, I suppose. Oh, let's also, I forgot in my discussion of risk, the risk that other leaders will, have a problem with Trump. Which leaders are we worried about? I've said this before, but, Putin is somebody we have to worry about, and obviously he gets along with Trump. The one I'd worry about is Clinton saying bad things about him all the time until Putin has to prove that he's more of a man than the leader of the United States, and then he has to do something to prove that he's not whatever she called him. That seems kind of dangerous to me. Then there's also the head of North Korea. I'm pretty sure Clinton will do what she's always done, which is say tough things about him, which will cause him to act in tough ways back to us. Trump's taking a different approach. He's saying, hey, North Korea, good luck dealing with China. You're their problem now. Which one of those is safer for the United States? Pissing off North Korea by continually insulting them and putting pressure on them? Or backing off and saying, look, we don't like the situation, but it's also China's problem. Go, China, go. Which one makes North Korea want to attack the United States more? All right. So I'm not sure how you can measure those risks, but it seems like it's at least a tie. Which one dresses like a dictator? Yeah, I'm not sure that's a terribly important factor. All right. The voting machine companies are donating to Clinton. Yeah, it certainly raises an eyebrow. When will ISIS start using drones? During the next administration. So in the next 4 years, you're going to see your first drone attack by a terrorist. And in this context, a drone would be a small hobby-sized drone, the kind you can buy over the internet, not the big military ones. All right, dead people vote. I don't use mind mapping now. Prison lobbyists donate to Clinton. What? Your dead aunt is voting for Clinton. Smoke ganja, Scott. That's the best advice anybody's given me all day. All right, you like my book? Thank you. Where's your girlfriend? She's not very far away. Maybe she'll say hi later. Yeah, I'll be doing some periscopes from London and also Zurich with Christina, if she wants to be on. I'm not sure if she will. You're buying all of my books? Thank you. Secretary of Persuasion. What do I think about the beta male who wrote about you the other day? Well, I was talking about that earlier in the podcast, that I don't know how much this is organized, but we do know that the Clinton side, one of their PACs, has tried to organize people to attack the influencers on the Trump side, the prominent voices who are not actual politicians, people like me. And so if you notice, my Twitter feed just suddenly, just out of nowhere, just became populated with people whose comments all were similar and different than things you've heard before. So it's a fairly coordinated attack. So I rose to the level. I'm kind of happy about this when you think about it. I actually rose to the level in a completely different field. Let me put some context on this. I was talking about Trump succeeding in a variety of different fields and actually dominating them. The first time he wrote a book, it was the #1 bestseller. First time he went on TV, he had this gigantic, hit. So he's dominated across all these different fields and now politics. And I've said that that's the sign of someone who has master persuasion skills, someone who can succeed in different fields that they don't have talent in. And I've also said that I've studied persuasion as well. And so one would expect if my hypothesis is correct, that if you have master persuader skills, you can succeed in fields that you don't have experience in. If you look at my resume, you'll see that I became a cartoonist without any real artistic training. I also had actually two number one best-selling books that they were the first and the second books I ever wrote. And I've never taken a class in writing, except for business writing, which is a different kind of writing. And I became one of the top public speakers on the speaking tour, again, just figuring it out on my own. And now, if you've been watching my blogging about Trump, I would say that I'm legitimately in the category of people that a number of people are paying attention to. So while I'm not dominating my field, I did have the best predictions of anybody in the world about Trump so far, objectively speaking. So that's a pattern you should look for. When you see people who are succeeding across fields, in different fields, the exception would be, startup people who do one startup after another, because arguably those are similar fields. It's just you're changing the product a little. But if you see people succeeding across completely different fields, that's usually somebody who's got persuasion skills, because persuasion is sort of the differentiator for almost anything that has to do with communication, especially. What did I get wrong with Kane? Kane? What do you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger? Well, a good example. I assume you're bringing this up because of the context I was just talking about. Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he succeeded as a bodybuilder, and then he succeeded as a movie star. Then he succeeded as a business person, made a lot of money in real estate and other things. And then he succeeded as a governor. Well, you could argue that he wasn't a good governor, but he did make it to governor of, California. And yes, he's a persuader, absolutely. Arnold and Trump, and to a lesser extent, even I have a similar skill set, which is we can make you think something is more interesting than you thought it was. And therefore you'll focus on it. And focus is most of persuasion. You want people to focus where you want them to focus and away from where you don't want them to focus. That's why Trump hired him. Could you succeed in poker or something similar? Yeah, probably. My guess is that if I wanted to become a professional poker player, I would have, a good leg up on that because of persuasion. You both have abs. Oh, I forgot to mention in my resume that my book had to fail in almost everything and still win big. If you look at the reviews, you'll see a lot of people are saying it's the best book ever written in its category, sort of the career advice, career strategy category. So that's how many fields? 5 fields that are completely unrelated that I've managed to dominate. And I say this not because I'm awesome, and not because, as Slate said yesterday in their article, I'm a horny narcissist, which, by the way, is the best kind of narcissist to be. I say it because it's the only way to make my point, which is that people who have the specific skill set, which I've studied to have, this skill in persuasion, they can succeed across different industries and completely different fields just with that tool set plus, some natural talent. But it's not the natural talent that makes the difference. I'm an asexual narcissist. Will you help me get a date with your neighbor? Actually, it would. It would help you do almost anything. Literally true, yes. If you have something that you want to do, like dating your neighbor, my book would help you do that. They say horny because male sexuality is threatening. I might do some business in London. I'm hoping to, yes. But it will also be for, I plan to enjoy it. Set up your own speaking events like Milo. Yeah, maybe after the election. That's possible. Einstein went from music to science. Yeah, but not as a persuader. I know, isn't that a funny thing to call somebody horny? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're horny, doesn't that mean that you're healthy and normal? Like, who isn't horny if they're healthy and normal? Michael Savage was banned from Britain. Well, I better get there before they ban me. Yeah, I know. I haven't traveled much. I need to do that. I think I might have to go to Zurich and just stay there until the election's over. Find a nice unaligned country. College students would benefit from my lessons. Well, I wrote the book for, my ideal age for that book would be 18. So yes, it's certainly targeted at college kids. What's with Trump's smear campaign? I don't even know what a smear campaign is in this context. It's all a smear campaign. Don't use a gym in London. Oh, that's scary. Oh, might die by barbell. I don't have an opinion on Farage. I just haven't been following the Brexit stuff. Wasn't interested. The book I mentioned is the one that's been out for a little while now. It's called How to Fail in Almost Everything and Still Win Big. Want to see some of my books? I've just got a sample of them downstairs here. I used to have a bar in my house. So this is actually a bar, but I transformed it into a temporary holding place. Here I have a few bottles of wine in case somebody visits. But here's some of my books. Here's my first #1 bestseller, The Dilbert Principle, many years ago. This one is the one that's just out this week. Optimism Sounds Exhausting. That's Wally's frames. That's cartoons in there. That was the one before it. Also a cartoon compilation. That's God's Debris. My fictional story that's sort of, I think it's in the Amazon category of religion, psychology, or something. This, by the way, is the book I'll be remembered for after I die. Nothing else on this list I am likely to be remembered for, but probably that book. You should read it. Here's an older reprint book. Here's the sequel. Here's the book that I predicted that back in 2003. Yeah, in 2003 I predicted in this book, this is fiction, but it was written as a prediction, that there would be a caliphate forming in the Middle East, like ISIS has, and that eventually a leader named Cruz would come to be in charge of the Western militaries. We haven't seen that, but there's a Cruz in the mix here. And that eventually drones would be sent out as terrorist weapons. Here are some of my books that have been translated. By the way, these translators often seem sexually inappropriate if you don't read the language. Because I don't know what comes Asuela means, but this might be the porn version of my book. But that's not as bad as the German version. Who, if you can see that, it says Die Kunst. That sounds pretty bad. Here we have, I don't know what that is, maybe Korean. Here's the book you need to be reading if you're at least 14 years of age. How to fail at almost everything and still win big. This will tell you how to make systems to be successful. Here's some 2017 calendars. Yes, I live in the future. You should get your 2017 box calendar. It's upside down. Oh, I'm sorry, this is actually the most current book. So this is the one that just came out. I'm no scientist, but I think Feng Shui is part of the answer. That's the boss's silhouette. So that's the one that came out this week. And that's a If you want to see the inside, the ones that have this look to them are comic compilations. Oh, look what I opened it to. I shook. Let's see if you can see this. Are you a terrorist? Why does everyone keep asking me that? You look like one. Well, I'm not a racist. Is it more of a sympathizer situation? Stop radicalizing me. Oh, well, I'm not, you racist. Sorry, I read my own joke wrong. Oops. To me. Back to me. Here, we're going to go over and I'm not going to put Christina on camera. Don't worry, you're not on camera. But your fans want to hear you say hi.
Hi, good morning.
Christina says hi and good morning, and we're very excited about going to London. So here's some questions. When in London, will I give Christina Big Ben? Well, thanks, you bastard, because I was saving that pun until we got over there, which is literally true. I've actually been thinking of my London puns in advance, so when I get there, I just have them ready to go. And yes, I was going to make a Big Ben joke when I got there, but thanks for ruining all that. Damn you. Yes, well, it was a bad pun the way you said it, but the way I would have said it would have been damn clever. Any recommendations? Yeah. Show your library. One of these days I'll do that. Are we dating? Yes. Do we call it dating? If someone is just your girlfriend. No, if someone's your girlfriend, are you dating? Or is dating what you do before your boyfriend and girlfriend? How's that work? Will I mind her gap? Isn't she a little old for me? Yeah, a little. But I don't mind her youth and inexperience, if I can borrow a line from Ronald Reagan. Yes, she is my girlfriend. She's also my neighbor. How does your girlfriend feel about you dating your neighbor? Well, remember I told you that that my girlfriend doesn't mind that I'm going to London with Christina? It's because she's my girlfriend. Psych. Dude, I always knew you were deplorable. Thank you. Is it my... I didn't lie. I told you that she's my neighbor, which she is. And I said that I said I have a girlfriend and that she has a boyfriend. And that's true. It just happens to be each other. I can't believe any of you fell for that. Well played. People are saying, damn. Your body language said you were lying. We knew it all along. You didn't lie. She's too old for you. Get in the basket. 4D chess. Christina is cool. I'm based as fuck. That's no, based. You got to follow the Twitter internet more. Based is a compliment. Oh, okay. Meaning, I don't know. What's the definition of being based? Anybody have that? Oh, the couch arm was a giveaway. Based means godlike, awesome. I think it means whatever you want it to mean.
I'll take awesome.
They say I get giddy when I talk about you. Have you seen her? You'd get pretty giddy if you saw her. She's pretty awesome. Oh, based means giving no fucks, legit. Based means whatever you want it to mean, apparently, which is perfect. Yeah. Have I hypnotized you? Tell the people if I have hypnotized you.
If he did, I would not know.
Good answer. How would she know? Actually, if you hypnotize somebody, they do know. Yeah, what does woke mean? Somebody define that for me. I think I sort of know what it means in context. What does it mean when people say you're woke?
Woke or awoke?
No, just woke, W-O-K-E. It means, you've woken up to some kind of awareness, but I know it means enlightened, but about what? It means woke, red pill? Is it specifically that domain, the red pill domain? Oh, okay, got it. You know the truth. You're woke. Unplugged from the matrix. Staying alert. All right. I think we've got 1,000 people here watching me running out of things to say. So I'm just reading your comments, so I'm like the worst entertainment you've ever had in your life. Let's look at an old guy reading something. Seduction books? I didn't understand that question. Are you a white supremacist? I am not. So if anybody has any good ideas for London, let me know. Smoke Kush daily. That's good advice. How many states will Trump win? I don't know. I'm guessing it's going to be a landslide. All right. I'm going to take off. I think we've done enough. I got a lot of work today. Got to get ready for the trip. You'll hear a lot from us on the trip. By the way, do you want to see Periscope the debate on Sunday? Oh, next debate's on Sunday. But you mean a week from today, I assume? Get a milkshake from the trailers, what? Stay woke. Yeah, I'm not going to get a car while I'm there. All right, I'm going to take off. What's my Snapchat? I don't really know. I forget. What's your Snapchat? Just all together, right? So you can follow Christina on Snapchat at Christina Basham. So it's just one word, Christina Basham. It's Christina with a K, K-R-I. Christina Basham, B as in boy, A-S-H-A-M as in Mary. Before I go, I'll blog with my Instagram and my Snapchat, and I'll let you know where I'm going to be at. What's Snapchat? All right, gotta go. Bye.